Good morning. Today I'm talking to Yanni Vecalati of Wirepas. Yanni, thanks for taking the time to talk about your company Wirepas' contribution to the new standard DECT NR+, the world's first non-cellular 5G technology standard. Perhaps we can kick off by you telling us a little bit about yourself and what you do at Wirepas.
Thank you, Vince, for inviting me on this interview. So my name is Yanni, and I'm a Senior Vice President at Wirepas. I'm heading global sales and business development activities, but we are a technology company, so even that we work in the sales, we are very technology oriented in all our customer interactions. So we need to kind of know inside out on the technology what we sell, but also to knowing that where it fits in the customer side. And being in the wireless industry more than 20 years, started at Nokia, being in ST microelectronics prior to joining Wirepas.
Okay, well, the Internet of Things is a very big place, and there are several technologies in use for IoT applications. What do you see as the benefits of DECT NR+ compared to other technologies?
There is few. I would really start from the top, which is about the scaling. So when you mentioned IoT, when I joined the Wirepas more than 7 years ago, it was all about the IoT, that IoT happens now, IoT does here and that. Now, in the 7 years later, I think we are pretty much still in that moment that the IoT gonna happen in a certain point.
Indeed.
And for me, that when I came from the wireless world, everything that was in place 7 years ago were more or less designed something else. So it was designed for the home automation, or it was designed for the point-to-point connection, like with your smartphone and some sensor. And then if you look like that, what was the kind of promises in IoT? It was to go to massive and scale. And there was nothing in place at that point of time except cellular. So for no question, cellular is the only demonstrator that you can do the massive connections everywhere. Everything else was repurposed. And that really shocked me, that when seeing the customers and people struggling to take into something, some technologies that was developed something else to kind of really find the stretches that what you can do that with the IoT. And then if I look like that, okay, the scale is not easy, because the scaling is that you can have a theoretical things, but then when you roll out, you really learn more. So if you look like what the DECT new Radio Plus, NR Plus is bringing, is first of all, that's the first standard in non-cellular wireless that has been designed for the scaling. And then if you look like what's another requirement on the IoT use cases, it's the reliability of the communication. If you are at home and some of your button switch is not received by the luminaire you press the second time, it's not the disaster. When you go in the industrial cases, you need the more reliability of the communication. And the third thing is the affordability. So the new usually the geeks, the early adapters at home, it doesn't matter how long it takes, you get it that working in the end. But when you need to deploy a massive amount of devices out there, you need to be affordable. And that's something that the DECT NR Plus is providing. And not to least mention that if you look then the radio spectrums. So 2.4 is the global, then you have a sub-gigahertz, which is very local. The DECT new Radio Plus is bringing the 1.9 gigahertz, which is global, and benefits of the kind of the longer range that you cannot get with the 2.4 gigahertz. And then the things like the building coexistence, because coming back to my word scale. So if you are not planned for success, so the more and more devices are coming to utilizing the same spectrum, it's going to be doomed. So this is something that has been taken into account in the DECT NR Plus.
And obviously success is what we're all aiming for, but what critical success factors and also what hurdles do we have to overcome before DECT NR Plus becomes an established IoT technology?
Yeah, I think if you look again the BAS about the standards, it's all about the market adaptation. It doesn't matter how good is the the kind of theoretical thing, or what is there a one good vendor or whatever. It's really about, in the end, it's the market adaptation that matters if that standard is successful or not. And what we have kind of tried to take the learnings from the past is that the key thing for the market adaptation is that you have a hardware available, because in the end you need the radio. So if you look like the DECT NR Plus, there is a hardware already available that is in the mass production. So that's like the first enabler. You need the hardware ASAP, which is here. Then if we look like that, typically it's that who do you take as early adopters of the technology? So there is quite a big threshold to take the new technologies, because not too many in the industrial IoT don't want to be the first mover. If you take the consumer side, you find much more early adopters in the organization, because there's really about that the technology enabling to bring the key benefit for the consumer to win in the market share. In IoT, for me, the common scheme is that there's not too many early adopters. Everybody want to be the second and the third, that someone has been already proven that on the market. So that's a very different case. And in our case, the standard didn't start from the zero. It was already proven in the 2.4 gigahertz. It was already proven in a sub-gigahertz in the various different applications, actually more than 100 different applications, before it was kind of contributed into the standard. So that has been revealing the pain that there is available hardware and there is a kind of proven use cases in the market to find these early adapters. And then in early adapters, it's about the kind of finding those use cases where you really bring the value that compared to other technologies. And we have worked together with quite large customer portfolio and prospect portfolio, and choosing a few areas. The number one is the smart metering, and then the second is the smart cities. So those are the both which has been looking for the scalable wireless technology which can be used in the globally. Then what are the hurdles? I mean, those are coming in the same, the success and the hurdles. So unless together with the DECT forum, with the partners, we are not able to make the adaptation in the market quickly enough, that will have an impact. And it's like that's where we should aim for everybody to prove the adaptation in the market, because technology itself, even that we all know that that's the best technology, we need to find the partners and helping that adaptation in the market as soon as possible.
Well, Wirepas has been the major contributor to the ITUR approval of DECT 2020 NR as a 5G technology. What do you see as the significance of that decision?
I love this question. Actually, in our company, have one person who has been filing the paper about the Bluetooth Low Energy when he was working at Nokia. He knew that time that what is needed. You need to connect the smartphone with your headset, with the low power audio, and there was multiple other cases what you want to connect with your smartphone. Did this person and those surrounding people understanding the value that it's going to be in 10 years? They might have has a kind of thinking and a vision where it goes, but would they ever imagine that after around 10 years there's not a single smartphone which is sold without the Bluetooth Low Energy, or the kind of a number of the application? So that's the power and that of the standardization. Then if you look like and that's a consumer that was designed for the consumer needs, and it has been also utilized and repurposed elsewhere. We wireless specialists have seen that very closely with the market on IoT and industrial IoT specifically, that there is not a good fit, but for the technologies in the past there is a kind of lots of limitations that what you are able to do. But where we see and what keeps us running there is that because we see the real need, what the people want to connect, and actually it's not the one thing. There is no other way than connecting all the devices to the internet, to the cloud in the future. And then we look like a DECT 2020 new radio. So there's so many people which looks this interview perhaps after 10 years, and then they think, oh, how they could see that this is going to happen in 10 years. But that's a reality. Then it's much more easier to look in a back mirror after 10 years. But at the moment that those has been created is quite difficult. And why I'm saying this? Because we work globally with the many different use cases, but all the common denominator is that we have been helping customers to solving how to scale. And this DECT 2020 new radio is really built for the scaling and making the IoT affordable and fast enough to scale it up in high volumes.
And how important do you think it is, do you believe it is, that DECT NR Plus will also be used for other applications, and what's needed to make that happen?
That's a key thing. So we have been working in IoT in a very limited time, and there is more than 100 applications where there's a good fit. If you look forward, this is only the fraction. And so when I came from the smartphone industry, basically the communication need was only one. It was the transmitting maximum amount of data between the base station or the cloud and the smartphone. It was only about really the transmitting data. If you look at the IoT, it's not such homogeneous way of need for the connecting things. Some of the devices looking for the extreme long battery lifetime. Majority need the coverage, independently of the density of the devices. So if you have a few sensors per building or you have thousands of devices in the building. Normally, if you look from the existing technologies, those all are being designed either or. So either you have a very long range to make the coverage, the connecting the one nodes, and usually then combining that with the very, very limited throughput, so how much you can send the data. Or then you have some kind of infrastructure built inside of the building to managing tens of thousands of devices in the building. So it always has been requiring some special thing. This DECT NR Plus was really taken into account that it can scale, that you can have quite a high density of devices in the area. So, and that's required by the many use cases. Some requires a bit more throughput, but not in a level that cellular high mobile broadband is providing, but something which is compared to IoT use cases unseen. So kind of 100 or 1,000 times more data with the same battery budget that the people have get used to it to see. Then the needs like really prepared for the over-the-air updates. There's not any more possibility to make a systems that you cannot not update over the air. So all of this needs to be built into the systems that were limited by some of the other standards earlier. So coming back to your question that how important it is to have the new use cases, we haven't seen the use cases, all the use cases yet. And that's the beauty of the IoT. And it really comes to the fact that what already clever people saw in 20 years ago, that everything is going to be connected. And that's a reality. Everything's going to be connected. There is not the one technology that can fit for everything. Where the DECT new Radio Plus will be killer is about that where you need to scale in a high quantity and be efficient and affordable. And there I can see a massive amount of applications.
Well, this is the one that everybody hates. When will we see the first commercially deployed products, Wirepas products using DECT NR Plus? And beyond that, at what stage do you think it'll achieve volume?
The first part is easy. So the first deployments happens Q4 this year.
Okay.
So not far away. And this is really coming back to what I answered earlier, that there's available hardware and the kind of the software has been already been able to develop in other frequencies. And then also the fact that based on the SDK where the end customers can develop the applications by utilizing another SDK before the moving to the new one. So that enables the fast time to market. Then about the high volume. So these applications that I told, like smart metering, those rollouts are quite significant. So after they start, they kind of run into the peak volume relatively fast. So it doesn't take actually years.
Right.
So we will see already significant volumes in the 23, but then building up the other applications top by top, and then introducing the more companies joining into the DECT NR Plus, that will take some time. So obviously we welcome and would like to see more and more companies joining into this DECT forum and start using this and contributing into this new standard, because I do see that there is a fit in the market. Yes, the volumes will grow like a semiconductor business grow typically, because that's kind of come with the radio. So there is always a kind of first early adopters, then getting that to the relatively in a mass production level where we talk about the millions per year, and then the next level is to getting the more adapters to joining into the and then so in 5 years it's a tens of millions per year for sure.
Well, we admitted at the beginning of the interview that we're not, or DECT NR Plus is not alone in this space. What's your view on Thread, which also uses mesh networking?
I would say that there is places where the thread is working. If you look once again at the kind of where it was originated, it was really a home automation use cases. That's where it was built for it. And some people have tried to take that into the kind of a bigger installations, and then it where the kind of the fun part starts. And then usually that's not being kind of solved by these technologies by themselves, but it usually requires then the one which is providing a solution to solve those kind of scaling challenges. I'm not going into details, but it's about the kind of the whole thing where it was designed for and developed for. That's where it works for it. Then if I look like the frequency spectrum, so it's 2.4 gigahertz. So compared to DECT NR Plus, for sure the range is a big differentiator. So Thread, it doesn't need to go in outdoor applications, for example. It doesn't need to penetrate a lots of walls, because of the density of the devices in the home automation is enough. Then what we see in Open Thread in the beginning is that we are a big believer of the open source, no question of that. But when you do the protocol, the one thing is to implement and the testing and then to certify. And what we did see in the people were hopping in quite eagerly to take something which is open source. What they forget is that when you take something open source, you also need to productize it. And is it that your responsibility, or is that the kind of the core business that you want to do? Is the productizing the stack? And we quite often see that it's a solution providers who take that pain to kind of productizing that stack, even that it's not their core business. While our responsibility has been all the time that our core business is the productizing the stack, and that's where we focus on it.
Okay, well, DECT NR Plus doesn't only have to coexist with technologies outside, but also with the classic DECT standard. How do you feel about that coexistence?
I think there's two ways of looking at it. First of all, the DECT NR Plus was designed in a way that it takes into account the coexistence with the previous generation. So there is kind of the way that it's been designed, it really takes into account that there is other signals going in the same frequency. The second that I see is that the usage. So if I look like where the DECT new radio will be used, compared that where the standard, the original, the classic DECT is used, those are very different use cases. Of course, they might have some places where they are being used in the same use cases, or let's say same area in the same time. But I would say that usually the usage of those applications is quite different, so I see that there is absolutely no issue.
Good.
To kind of mix those.
And let's look into the future. Where do you see DECT NR Plus in 5 years' time?
So I see that it's number one selection for the industrial players when they choose a wireless radio which is non-cellular. So there's a place for the cellular connections. For example, when you want to have a high throughput video cam picture, so if it's a private or non-private networks. But then when it comes to this more sensor networks, actuators, DECT new Radio Plus will be the number one selection in the 5 years for the industrial players. Then seeing that what as a Wirepas we did with the 2.4 and sub gigahertz only a one company, I'm confident to say that going from here as a kind of DECT standard, there will be more than 200 companies developing a solutions based on this technology in 5 years. So that number of the companies will be more than 200. And if I look then the amount, so only in 5 years, the deployed products will be more than 50 million. And after that, I rather see that it's like a 50 million per year, because then it's like this ramp up has happened and there is a multiple players. So then it's just multiplying each year.
And as a group of people, what do we all need to do to ensure the successful development of DECT NR Plus?
It's not about the look in tomorrow, it's about the look in the future. And what I see the biggest limitation in the people's thinking is that you are not ready to think of your success. If every company would be planning their IoT activities based on their success, they would already start to kind of investing things which are scaling them in the future. So more companies would need to see the value, and they need to become aware of this new non-cellular standard that is designed for the industrial IoT use cases. So first of all, to make the awareness, then get companies to contribute in the different layers. So there needs to be the hardware contribution, there needs to be the contribution in the protocol stack, there needs to be the kind of certification level, application development, because then if you look like the use cases, typically, even that you have solved the communication layer, independently if it's a cellular or it's a Zigbee or Thread, you still need to align with the application layer, which then, depending on the use case, if you look at the smart metering, there is a DLMS standard. If you look in a smart building, there's going to be a Matter. So all of these needs to come together, and this is the sum that together we need to set the seed of the future and start to work today, and not just only kind of look like the next day only, but really make that this is where it needs to be in 5 to 10 years, and now put all the actions behind that. So I warmly welcome everybody which are serious and want to have a serious play in the industrial IoT in 5 years. Take a look deep in DECT NR Plus, and then start to contribute on that. That's how we make that even better. Not only when there's a limited companies, but when there's more and more companies.
This is all very exciting, isn't it? I'm very optimistic about the future for DECT NR Plus, and I hope that you and I have the chance to talk about it again in the future. Thanks very much for your time today, Tony.
Thank you, Vince. It has been a pleasure.